Hello everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk After the Show. In this cosmic episode, we'll be going over everything you need to know about the Universal 5, how the show originally became to be, the entire development process, and what's next for the Universal 5's future. So, with that out of the way, go ahead and grab your tinfoil hats and, your Planetary Globe and probably a notebook, maybe a pencil or something, as we discuss what you need to know after the show about the Universal 5. I guess to properly begin this episode, we gotta begin with the creation of the show and early development. Where did the show originally come from? The Universal 5 first began its development, I want to say probably late May, early June, so probably around the time when Mod Gear was coming to its end. And the entire backlog behind why the Universal 5 was developed in the first place was because I wanted to bring space content back to this channel for the first time really in ever. Because at the time, the only actual space-related video that had been on this channel for the entirety of the year was one of the very first episodes of Panda's Lost Episodes, funny enough. And before that, it was Universe Sandbox, but that was almost over a year ago. I wanted to bring space content back for a time, because I have teased the idea that the Universal 5 was never planned to be the only space thing. But I wanted to bring it back for a time, because, not only was I just telling myself I want to bring it back, but I actually had legitimate people bugging me saying, hey, bring your space content back, so I decided to do it. But in early development, the Universal 5 needed something to be inspired by, it needed something to, role model of. The two biggest things that the Universal 5 really just kind of looked on, and basically was their successors, was Panda's Lost Episodes and Minecraft build tutorials. Mainly, it's the fact that the Universal 5 gains its inspiration from Panda's Lost Episodes from the idea of remastering old videos. Because if you've seen Universal 5, you'll probably know that I've done things like making a solar system, or the Collision 2, or the color system, basically just remaking them. And that's where kind of Panda's Lost Episodes I can't speak because I'm, weird. But that's where the inspiration from Panda's Lost Episodes actually comes into play, with the idea of remastering those episodes instead of just creating new ones. Yes, they're new ones, but they're remastered based off their old ones. The other idea that comes from the inspiration of actual Minecraft build tutorials is the idea that the style definitely does feel the same. If you're, for example, the color system is a really good example of this, where we build the entire system, we give our thoughts on each planet, how we designed it, and then there's a little cinematic shot at the end that actually shows the system. You look at Minecraft build tutorials, that's roughly the same thing. We're building, say, I don't know, a volleyball court, for example, more like recently, and we would be there explaining all of our steps as to how we built it, and then a cinematic shot would follow showing the actual build itself. So you can therefore kind of see just where the inspiration comes from, both from the build tutorial side and Panda's Lost Episodes side. But aside from that, the Universal 5 did not have a lot of early development, because most of it was figured out roughly by the time late development came around. And speaking of late development, we can now actually get into that, because that's the fun part. During late development, it was actually changed to where, surprisingly enough, the Universal 5 wasn't meant to be called the Universal 5, or at least I think it was, because originally, the show was not planned just to have 5 episodes. It was planned to have something like 8 to 10, because it was supposed to be remastering a lot more videos. But unfortunately, that just wasn't the case, mainly just because I wanted the Universal 5 to be, in quotes, a mini-series, not a fully fledged series. And I wanted to make sure that it premiered in the summer, not going into the fall and going into November when it ends or something, because that would just screw up a lot of other scheduling, and it just makes that entire time segment basically just a whole globbled up mess. So that was why in late development it was changed that the show would cap at 5 episodes, counting Let's Talk After the Show, which is this. So in that case, during late development, it was also decided as to how the episodes that actually came out, how are they going to be picked. And the way they were going to be picked was I would just sort basically all my videos by most popular, and I'd go through the Universe Sandbox videos and just pick 5 videos that I felt like, okay, this was popular, maybe I can remake it and just kind of make it better, basically. So things like the Collision, or the color system, or terraforming planets, making a solar system, all of these things did very well back then. So now I'm hoping to make sure that they do well, basically again, and trust me, they all did pretty well considering how well this channel's been doing over the last few months. And as I mentioned in early development, the Universal 5 was not originally planned to follow that building tutorial-like format. It was a bit off a little bit in its early development, but as late development started coming around, the building tutorial-like format that building tutorials have nowadays was converted over to Universal 5 to make the show a bit easier to work on and make things just more simplistic. But with the actual development, or at least late development aside, we can now get to the episode development, discussing how each individual episode was developed, chosen, and any things that would go in and change. So let's start with the very first episode, and that was making a solar system. My first thought with making a solar system was I didn't want to make it just like a random solar system. I didn't want to make a new video that had nothing to do with the original or anything like that. Granted, I have remade my original Universe Sandbox solar system numerous amount of times in the past, so it wasn't really anything new, and I say that in quotes because it really isn't new, but I wanted to give it a bit more flavor. I wanted to provide the system feeling like it was a bit more unique. And that was when the idea came in that, okay, let's make the planet let's make the entire solar system basically look like it's 100 years in the future, and show just what happens when you leave a system basically all alone for an extensive period of time. I think this video definitely came out to be probably one of the better ones. It's the most popular out of the entire series, so I'm assuming it did well. But there really isn't much I would go back and change other than maybe changing some atmosphere colors, just, doing some editing with some tweaking. But aside from that, it's a pretty good episode, and I wouldn't really change anything. Moving on to the second episode of the series, and that was Recreating Earth. Now, Recreating Earth is a rather interesting one because there's a lot of Earth history that you can explain via Universe Sandbox. And one of the biggest things that I always had trouble with was how much can I put in without boring people. And I definitely felt like this episode it didn't really nail the bar all that much. It provided information, sure, but I feel like it could have had a bit more information. I felt like there could have been more information about maybe Earth's heyday or maybe modern Earth or something like that. But I feel that it just didn't quite nail the bar. And the only really thing I would really go back and change is just to add more information to Earth's history and maybe make it like the actual solar system's there to make it feel a bit more realistic. The third video in line for the Universal 5 is The Collision 2. And honestly, I think this is probably not just one of my favorite Universal 5 episodes, but it's probably one of my favorite space videos as a whole. It's a video that I put a lot of love into because of what the collision actually was. I definitely do think that showing off the cinematics of two planets just going at it and all that from different angles especially made it feel very interactive and very realistic. And also adding in actually the after effects of fixing the planet and making it come back to life was also a nice touch. But I do think that I could have put tab or something click tab, hide the UI or something during the video for actually fixing the planet because it just seemed a bit weird seeing all the UI. But other than that, the episode actually came out really good and I don't have any complaints and I wouldn't really fix anything other than maybe just doing some UI tweaking. And the fourth video in the series was the color system. Color system, actually came out very good, honestly, considering the planets that we got. I definitely feel that one of the biggest things I would change is to go in an editing program or something like that, give these planets their atmospheres and color them. Give them the colored clouds, give them the colored atmospheres. If they have city lights, give them the colored city lights, because you can actually do that. Give them the colors to make them more realistic. Unfortunately, due to just time constraints and the fact that I didn't want to go completely crazy with these episodes, because again, the Universal 5 is still a miniseries, I wanted to make sure that they looked the part, but I do feel like that if I was going to go all out with this, then I would definitely give them the tinted atmospheres, the tinted colors, the tinted city lights, the clouds. I would do everything like that. But aside from that, the color system came out very well, and I'm very happy with how it turned out in the end. And finally, the last episode of the series that aired just last week, and that was Terraforming Planets. This episode it had its ups and had its downs. Granted, places like Venus and Mars, for example, turned out to be very, very cool looking, and I would actually really like to stay on them. But things like all the gas giants, like Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus and Neptune, they feel just really off, and having that 1500 atmospheric pressures on Neptune just seemed really strange. So I'm not 100% sure how I would fix that, but what I would really like to do is to make it so that these planets aren't dark and completely dark, because I don't know if it's either atmosphere or if it's light reflection. I don't really know what it is, but whatever it was making these planets really hard to see. So I would try to find a way to fix that, to actually make them see it. Like, yes, sure, I could have gone on studio light in the actual game itself, but I actually want to make sure I can see it in realistic lighting. But that's really the only thing I would change, really, just to make these planets a bit more noticeable, and to make them not look they're like actual like frozen ocean worlds, because that's what they looked like with very small amounts of land. I just want to go back and fix the gas giants in the simulation, because the gas giants just didn't really nail the bar quite right. But for gas giants, it kind of makes sense, because Universe Sandbox is a bit weird on its generation, but that's really the only thing I would fix with this. But now that concludes all of the episode development, altogether, all the episodes in this series came out to be pretty dang good, to be honest. They're some of the best space videos I've made, and mainly it's just minor tweaks, like coloring some atmospheres or surfaces, maybe bringing planets closer to the star or something, changing out some atmospheric pressures, just basic stat and UI and interface settings and tweaks that might be able to be fixed. But aside from that, the actual episodes themselves came out to be really good. And surprisingly enough, I can actually move into the cut content that the Universal 5 has, because surprisingly enough, even though the Universal 5 is only a mini-series, it still does have its few little bits of cut content. The first piece of cut content actually relates to the episodes themselves, in the sense that things like, the two specifically being the recreating Earth and the color system, weren't actually supposed to premiere in the series when it was first, thought up and first designed. Instead, if you've been with the channel long enough, you'll probably know that I've made Universe Sandbox videos of things like total domination, or like throwing planets at each other, like a montage or something, like destruction montages, for example. Those videos actually, I'll go ahead and give it a shout out. Those videos, I made those videos a long time ago, mainly just because of a smaller YouTuber called Spike Viper, so if he's watching that video, shout out to Spike Viper for those awesome videos that I helped create, and that's what inspired me to do destruction montages. But in short, these videos were originally supposed to go into the Universal 5 to get remastered, but the reason why they were cut was solely because it just didn't really fit with where the show was, especially when you had videos like, making a solar system, or the Collision 2, or terraforming planets. Having destruction montages right in the middle just seemed kind of weird, considering that you had all these other videos that were about, fixing or remastering types of systems. They just felt off. And more importantly, I just didn't really feel like it was worth having to destroy stuff for 30 minutes for a video. It just seemed like it didn't feel necessary. So that's why they were cut, mainly just because they didn't feel necessary, and because I just didn't feel like putting them in the first place, and they just felt awkward being there in the first place. The second bit of cut content was basically just how the show was planned to air in the first place. Universal 5, right now, and its current state when it actually went live, followed very similar to how the upload schedule of Panda's Lost episodes worked, as the Universal 5 and Panda's Lost episodes premiered every 2 weeks on a random day. For Panda's Lost episodes, it was Wednesday. For the Universal 5, it was Friday. And their schedules are pretty much identical to each other. However, in the actual show's first design, this was not the schedule. Originally, the Universal 5's actual first schedule was to not premiere every 2 weeks. It was only supposed to premiere once every month. So therefore, it would just be here's 5 episodes, but the series is going to span over 5 months, with one video coming out a month. Personally, I did not like this actual schedule, because it just made it so that it felt like you were waiting at that point just for the episodes to come out, and I felt like it was waiting too long. And I just don't like people waiting for a month for a new episode of their favorite series, because, that's just wrong. It builds up anticipation, you lose hype on stuff. And that was why the Universal 5 changed over to a Panda's Lost episodes upload schedule. Mainly it's just that A, consistency, so that the videos were going on in an orderly timed pace, but B, it made it so that Universal 5 wasn't really premiering along with other big deal series, we're talking Minecraft, maybe EXE files or something like that. Mainly just so that they aren't premiering around each other, because then it just compiles and complicates that upload schedule. And finally, the last bit of cut content is actually more just how the show is designed. For that, I need to explain how I make my videos and the 2 different types of videos I make. If you've been with the channel long enough, you probably know that I split my videos into 2 different categories. Either they're live recorded videos or scripted videos. Now, live recorded videos are videos like Minecraft challenges or mini-games, maybe certain episodes of Panda's Lost episodes where I'm at the computer, I'm recording and talking all at once, and there's not a script or something. Scripted videos, on the other hand, are videos like this one that you're watching today, things like Mod Gear, Pandaren Update, and as well as the Universal 5. Videos that have their footage and the actual like scripted audio recorded in 2 different, time frames. So I can have my footage recorded a week in advance, but the actual script will be written out and then recorded via like an audio recorder or something, and then it'll be an MP3 file or something. So I just smash the video and the scripting together into one. That's mainly what the Universal 5 and Mod Gear run on. They run as scripted series, where things like challenge and minigame videos are live recorded. They don't have scripts. Originally, the Universal 5 was also planned to be a live recorded based series, but during the course of development, I sat there and wondered, how is that going to work? How can I make live recorded videos of like making a solar system or the collision? Like, how am I going to talk over the middle of the collision? Am I going to be sitting there watching the planet like slowly tear apart the other and be like, yes, that's very nice. No, I'm not going to do that. And that was one of the biggest reasons why live recording got shoved out of the window, was because it just did not fit the profile of the series basically as a whole. And I'd rather have the Universal 5 be scripted because it's easier to make, but it also just makes sense. And it makes it to where the show doesn't feel so complicated that it's hard to understand. But that was mainly just all of the cut content. Very small stuff, to be completely honest. But it makes sense considering that the Universal 5 is a mini-series and not like a massive series like Mod Gear or PandaPowerSauce episodes. And that's mainly just that. And now I can move probably into the more interesting part of this Let's Talk After the Show, and that is, what's next for the future of the Universal 5? And well, I can go ahead and just put it bluntly. The Universal 5 definitely has a very good future ahead of it. And I'll just go ahead and confirm it. Due to just community reception, as the Universal 5 did extraordinarily well on its launch, and is still doing well as of right now, there's probably about, I would say probably about 100% chance that the Universal 5 will get a second season. Now, as to when that show's going to premiere, we'll get to that in a moment, but I want to go ahead and just go over the basics of, like, is there any differences between Season 1 and eventually Season 2, that kind of thing. To put it bluntly, Season 2 will basically be an exact copy of Season 1. The design's going to be the same, the upload schedule's going to be the same, the number of videos is going to stay the same, the scripted aspects is going to stay the same, and then, things like the inspiration from PandaPowerSauce episodes, like building tutorials, that's going to probably stay the same. So Season 2 is just going to be basically the continuation of Season 1. And you'll have, like, different videos. So it'd be like, for example, making a red-colored solar system. Shout out to Neptunian Guy, if you're watching this video, that's where I got that idea from. But, like making, like, a blue solar system, or, like, a total cuff domination, or something like that, or just some kind of random Universe Sandbox video. Remaster 5 more. Now, as to when this season will be actually like properly announced and unveiled, as of right now, the Universal 5 would probably not have its second season start. Probably not in this year, as most of 2020 has already been scheduled pretty much to the end of the year. Like, I already know what I'm going to plan on making for the rest of the year. And as of right now, there's not really a space to put it in without complicating my schedule, basically. Because, schoolwork makes that even worse, and I don't want to have to sit there and kill myself, like, quite literally. However, as of right now, 2021 and its planning, which will be talked about in, Pandaren updates and to come, which the next one comes out next week, so be on the lookout for that. But 2021, as of right now, is kind of dry at the start, so most likely, the Universal 5 would probably premiere right alongside things like, say, if Minecraft or maybe like another big deal series were to kick off 2021, the Universal 5 would probably kick off along with them. So therefore, there'd be like 3, maybe like 2, 3, heck, maybe even 4 series premiering at the start of next year, and the Universal 5 would probably be one of them. Speaking of which, if, and probably yes, that if the Universal 5 does get its second season and it starts right away at the start of next year, most likely it will probably be called the Universal 5 Round 2, or like Volume 2, or something like that. Not like Season 2, because that just seems kind of weird, especially because it's a space series. Who knows, I might give it like the Glorious Spaces in treatment and give it like Volume 2 or something. Who knows? But that basically is a wrap. So let's just go ahead and briefly cover... Let me just grab the script, hold on. Yep, there it is. Alright. We went over basically the early development of the Universal 5 as to how the show originally came to be through wanting to bring space content back and stuff like that. We also went over things like late development, discussing how basically the Universal 5 is basically inspired by the designs of Panda's Lost episodes, as well as Minecraft building tutorials, and changes to things like episode layouts and how episodes were picked, as well as just, formats and how shows are going to run and whatnot. We also discussed the episode development, discussing each episode in depth, discussing things I would change, or things I might make different from each episode, which, let's face it, there wasn't really a lot. We also went over some small bits of cut content, because this show actually did have some, going over things such as cut videos that were originally planned to premiere, the original planned air date all the way to December, as well as its original plan of being a live recorded series rather than a scripted one. And lastly, we also went over the future of the show, announcing that the Universal 5 will get a second season, but it's probably not going to premiere during the remainder of 2020. It will most likely premiere probably within the first 6 months of 2021 at earliest. But most likely, you'll probably find out more information about this second season of the Universal 5, butchered that sentence. You'll probably find more information about it, probably not in next week's Pandaren update for September 2020, but you'll probably find out more about it in Pandaren Update in December of 2020. And if you want to learn more about Pandaren Update for December, then I highly recommend you go watch the September 2020 Pandaren Update, which will be going out on Wednesday, September 2nd, so make sure you guys watch that video, because that'll give you a bit more idea as A, to what to expect for the remainder of the year, and B, just to make sure that you're ready for Pandaren Update in December for when it does go live. But anyway, that's going to conclude this Let's Talk after the show. If you've enjoyed the Universal 5 and you're very hyped to see Season 2 next year, then make sure you leave a like down this video and comment what was your favorite episode? What were your favorite moments of the show? So that way, I can actually get some viewer feedback. But that concludes this episode. My name is PandaPowerSauce. Remember to stay saucy, and we'll see you again very soon in the cosmos. A lot sooner than you think, actually. So, later.